to have Patrick Stewart come on stage.
I'll tell you how good it is to be here. You know, somebody touched me. It was like something from another world that just came out. Just put in my ear. Yes, got it. They say, never explain, never apologize. But today I have to start with an apology because I think exactly 1 month ago, or maybe it's 5 weeks now, I was supposed to be here. And one of the reasons that you don't see me very often at events like this is that I hate having to back out of something at the last minute. And although they always give you 30-day back out clauses, I don't like it. If I say I'll do something, I want to be there. But if I can't guarantee that I will be there, then I'd rather not make that commitment in the first place. In this case, Toronto was going to be part of my whole itinerary while I was in North America. But something interrupted that plan. And I had to give Aman barely 72 hours notice. And it was not my decision. The decision was made for me. I was told, you will not do this. And it saddened me enormously because I do believe it is the first time, the very first time, that I have not showed up when I promised that I would be somewhere. So, I was pretty miserable about that, so I'm sorry that I missed it, but I really do appreciate not only the rescheduling of this event, because I said, from my hospital room, I told Aman, I promise you, I guarantee you, I will do no other appearance in North America until I've been to Toronto. And I was unaware that it could be rescheduled so quickly. And so for me, it's been a great blessing, because I also happen to be here, not very far away from here, actually, so it worked out well for both of us. I want to take just a little minute to talk about what happened to me, because it's all, no, don't take her out. Good, it is a her, isn't it? It is good. Oh, no, don't take her out, let her stay, I don't mind. And if, you know, if she's really unhappy, take her out. I know I will be unhappy sitting there watching me. Yeah, indeed, you know, and we need them. Here's the thing. What happened to me, which was commonplace, it was nothing special at all, needs a little bit of talking about, because there are lessons to be learned from it. Here's the thing. If I had not been a person who worked out regularly, i.e. 5-6 times a week, and by that I just mean cardiovascular, I would have not had the discomfort in my chest that I began to experience. And if I'd not had that discomfort in my chest, I would not have called my doctor and said, I don't feel, something's going on, it doesn't feel good. And he would not have said, come on in and let's have a look at you. And if he'd not said, come on in and let's have a look at you, they would not have put me in front of all this wonderful technology and determined, contrary to what I believe, because I kept saying to them, I know there's nothing wrong, I'm just stressed. I know it's been an intense 6 months and a lot of things have been going on in my life. I know there's nothing wrong with me. And I now know what those smiles were like when I told them what I was experiencing. And they said to me at about 1:45 on that Monday morning, before I was due to be here, they said, well, we went looking for something and we found it. And we think we should take care of it now. And they did. Within an hour, I was being prepped for surgery. So the whole point of this is that my rigorously getting myself to work out each day, even though it's nothing dramatic or intense, I just work up a sweat for 40, 45 minutes, was the only indicator that something was wrong. There was nothing else, because it was only when I worked out that I had this problem. The rest of the time, I was absolutely fine. And what I had was a 75% blockage of a major artery. And my heart could cope with it at rest. It could not cope with stress. And so, in that, there is a lesson. Take care of yourself. And if you feel something ain't right, act on it. Because today, they can deal with this stuff. I mean, the guy who did my angioplasty, he did 9 that day. I was just another one. Wheel them in, wheel them out. And the good thing is that they said to me, you know, on the plus side of all of this, the chances are now it is extremely unlikely that you will ever die with anything wrong with your heart, because we are watching it from now on, which they can do. And so I offer that up as a piece of advice if you choose to take it or not. I promise you, it's an interesting experience, and I'm sure there are people sitting out here in this auditorium who have had far worse experiences than I had. But in the space of 5 minutes, I went from thinking that I was the fittest, healthiest 64-year-old on the planet to learning that I had cardiarterial disease and will have it for the rest of my life. You know, suddenly you're the person sitting there being told there's something wrong with you, when you thought that they would never, you know, what was it Woody Allen said? We all know that we're going to die, but we each feel that in our case a special exception will be made. That was me. Well, I now know there's no special exception. And the other thing I have to say publicly is about those great doctors at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles, because was I lucky that I was in that building when they said, we found something. Right, happier thoughts. I meant to bring along with you my brilliant little, I got a pen. I said, I want to see what's inside me now. So one of the doctors gave me this pen with a stent, a little, not the one of course, but one like it, floating around inside. But on a plane this week, I lost all the fluid. It leaked out all. So you can't see it anymore. Well, this is an interesting time for me. I am in an ongoing period of unemployment, relative unemployment. That's a rather dramatic. That's a rather dramatic way of putting it. But I have not had what I would call a project since I finished doing The Caretaker on Broadway on the 4th of January. You're looking at somebody who has never taken more than 3 weeks off in his life. I mean, it's ironic that I take 9 months off and I end up in a hospital. But I was fried back in January. My brain and body had just had enough of project after project after project, and intensity and intensity and intensity and traveling. And so I stopped, and it was wonderful. It still is in part wonderful, but I'm ready for it to be over now. So if any of you have any projects out there. So here's the slight difficulty about my situation now. I was explaining this over lunch. Usually what happens is that I come up here and I talk for 15, 20 minutes about all the things I've been doing, all the things I'm going to be doing, because as my friends, and particularly my friends on Next Generation will tell you, Patrick always has 8 projects lined up, always. Many of them, self-induced. Don't I? And I don't look too bad, do I? Sorry. So I don't have anything to talk about in terms of the work that I'm doing. I don't have anything to talk about. I have. I'm hopeful that I'll be doing a play in the West End of London, which will probably open at the beginning of next year, but that's a long way off. I've just been offered a rather interesting thing in a television movie, which I may or may not do, but I can't talk about it because I can't tell you what it is. The only thing that I could take a risk and be sure about is that I will be back in Canada next June when we start work on X3. Not in Toronto. Toronto, of course, was the birthing place of X-Men because we shot X1 right here in the city, and then we moved to Vancouver for X2. Why? Why? I've actually spent, that was my 4th project in Toronto, and I've always had a great time here. But I'm as you may or may not know, I'm an outdoors type, and I like mountains. I'm not good with flat country. I get slightly depressed in flat country. It's not, I get oppressed by flat country. Do you know what I mean? I feel as though something is weighing on me if I can't look up and see some hills and mountains. So Vancouver in that respect suits me rather well. I haven't got anything else to tell you. That is how incredibly boring my life has become. And absolutely delicious in the space of the last 9 months. I've traveled a great deal. I've been to places I've never been before, and that has been wonderful. And I'm happy to talk about those things. But I think right now the best thing will be to turn it over to you. We have, and that's what Aman was whispering in my ear just now, we have microphones here and here, and anyone who wishes to ask a question about work or life or art can take that opportunity. But we do need you, I think, to come to these microphones.
Hello, Mr. Stewart.
Hello.
Thank you again for coming. I have a question. Is there any chance of you doing your one-man Christmas Carol in Toronto?
I have been asked. It's a funny thing about Christmas Carol. You know, this is probably, in some ways, the most important thing I've ever done, because it was entirely self-created. Nobody brought it to me. It was something that became an obsession with me. And I've done it a lot over the years, but it's really hard work. It's really hard work. And I once unloaded concrete slabs for a construction company when I was a student, and that was less difficult than doing Christmas Carol. And right now, particularly because of what happened to me, I'm a little bit nervous about doing it. I used to joke and say, you know, all actors really, if you're going to die, you always want to die on stage, you know. And I used to say, I know, I will go in the middle of the Fezziwigs dance. And I remember, somebody reminded me the other day that I first performed Christmas Carol 15 years ago. Different piece of flesh in those days. But I will do it again because I have to. I'm like the Ancient Mariner, it's compulsive. And my partner on Christmas Carol, Kate Elliott, who has stood downstage right or downstage left for every single performance of Christmas Carol I've ever done, and I couldn't possibly do it if Kate weren't there. She and I have had a little fantasy. No, that's too elaborate. A dream. No, an ambition. That one year we'll take a chunk of time off, and starting, say, mid-November, maybe around about Thanksgiving, I mean the other Thanksgiving, we do a tour which would go something like San Francisco, Seattle, Vancouver, Toronto, Chicago, Detroit, Boston,
DC?
I have this ambition to do that and to end up in the White House.
As long as Toronto's in there, that's...
I have an ambition to end up in the East and go, I will not get into politics this afternoon, no matter what you say. I'll just say, I have an ambition to do Christmas Carol in the White House. And so Toronto is part of that plan that we've had, that one day we do that, you know. So watch this space.
I have something for you. Can I bring it up?
We have a system for that, I'm told.
Oh, okay, good.
And the reason being that if I accept gifts here, it kind of holds me up, and I have a limited amount of time. So if you can give it to one of the staff, they will see that I get it, and I promise you that I will pay attention to what it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Who's the best director you've ever worked with, or a series of directors you've worked with on stage and on screen, and why?
Who is the best director? Who is the best director I've ever worked with? It's an impossible question because I work with different directors in different media, and I've liked them for different reasons. I've been very blessed in my life that I worked with some of the greatest theatre directors in the world. Peter Brook, Peter Hall, Trevor Nunn, David Jones, George C. Wolfe in New York, David Esbjornsen, and I've even been in the company of some quite talented film directors too. I mentioned David Lynch, John Borman, Jonathan Frakes. Bryan Singer. No slouch, Bryan Singer. Even though he's going to direct Superman 3. Which I wholeheartedly support. I'll miss him. You know, he's not going to do X-Men 3. Yeah. You didn't know that? No, Bryan has withdrawn from that and is going to direct the new Superman movie. And he will be missed. But he's launched us spectacularly. So we're grateful for that. So you like directors for different reasons, you know. I mean, I just mentioned now David Jones, with whom I was going to do a theatre project in England, starting rehearsals in 3 weeks' time. It fell through. And one of the reasons I love working with David Jones is that David first directed me in 1967. So when you have a relationship like that with a director who is also an intimate friend, that's pure gold. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, if I would work with Steven Spielberg, it couldn't be like David, because, you know, when we're in a rehearsal room together, it's more than a partnership, you know. And in the theatre, probably the most distinguished living director of my time is Peter Brook, and I worked with him 3 times, very, very closely, very intensely, and that was unforgettable. But then Trevor Nunn is somebody that I've worked with many, many times and admire. And I'm also always looking for new directors, you know, especially younger directors to work with that I don't know, because it's especially stimulating for older actors to work with, you know, with young blood. So I cannot give you an answer, sir, I'm sorry.
Hello. Of all your favorite characters, which one is your favorite, and which one did you have the most fun playing?
Well, we're in the same territory again here. I don't think that, I don't know any actors who can ever answer questions like that, because if I were to say this was the most favorite, it would somehow diminish everything else, and maybe even what lies ahead. There have been so many characters that I've loved, and characters that when I was playing them, I thought, there's never been anything as good as this. I look back to doing The Caretaker on Broadway in the winter, playing Davis, to playing Solness in The Master Builder in London in the summer. Great experiences, completely different. I mean, my happiest memories are playing George in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in Edward Albee's masterpiece. And Shakespearean roles too, and roles on film. I'm lucky in that mostly these days, I don't do something unless I really want to do it. It's a great blessing that I don't have to do whatever is offered to me. So I have that choice, and I only try to choose things. These days particularly, I like to choose things that I think have a possibility of affecting people significantly, and who knows, even in some tiny way changing the world. It's always been my ambition since I started acting that, you know, performance can change the world, and so that's the sort of thing that I'm looking for.
2 more quick things, real quick. First, maybe you'll be Lex Luthor in Superman 3.
I'm the only one who didn't understand that question.
Maybe you'll be Lex Luthor in Superman 3.
You know, come on, seriously, it's unlikely, isn't it? I've already got 2 franchises hanging around my neck. It's unlikely that they would. Anyway, what was the other one?
And since you're not busy, we're having turkey at my place tomorrow. So if you want to come over, you're welcome to come over. Cheers.
Thank you. Turkey, good, healthy eating. Unfortunately, I have to be on a plane in 3.5 hours from now. But thank you for the invitation. It's generous. Yes, sir.
Not this time when Michael Dorn was here, but the last time he was here, he was explaining that when he was behind you, he used to pretend that your head was an ashtray. And he used to pretend that he screwed the top of your skull off and put out a cigarette and re-screwed your top of your head on. I was just wondering if there's anything, I think it's ironic that he'd be with the bumps on his head making fun of your skull, but if there's any stories you have about him, and is there any chance that we can get you to do a little bit of Shakespeare for us today?
Well, you've reminded me that there was something else that I had to apologize for. Which was exposing you all to Michael Dorn. Instead of me. LeVar is another matter. I mean, LeVar is a class act. But Dorn... yes, it's true, he did do the ashtray gag on the top of my head. He used to pretend to break eggs as well, and then do sizzling noises as though... Yeah, it was all very, very funny. And, you know, the fact that, like so many of my colleagues, Dorn also has nothing in his life, I was happy to go along with that. Yeah, it amused him for a few minutes, and, you know, it didn't hurt me to let him. One of the things, actually, moments before I walked on stage, I was talking to Brent Spiner, because Brent and Dorn and Marina are heading for London in a few days' time, and we were making our plans. We have 2 nights when they're not working and I'm free, and oh my, I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to this time. I see Brent, of course, Jonathan Frakes now lives in London, and that's wonderful for me because I see him regularly. Brent I see a lot, and Marina too. But Dawn I don't see enough, and LeVar I only see occasionally, and whenever we get together, these are just highlights in my year. They're the best people in the world. You asked about stories. Well, there was this thing we used. I'm sure you know that Dawn giggles. He giggles like a girl. I'm sorry. I know that is a sexist thing to say, but he giggles like a girl. And he sweats when he giggles, and it all runs out under his turtle head. And so. Usually on a Friday, we were shooting on the bridge, and there was a basic system that all the directors used, I used it, that you would start out by doing a master of a scene, camera way back, shooting the whole bridge, everybody in it, and then you would do coverage or close-ups, working from the view screen backwards or forwards into the bridge, which was great for LeVar during the days that he was at Con, and Brent, of course, at Ops, because they would get shot out quite early on. In other words, the camera would have passed them, so that meant they could change. They could get out of makeup, they could get into their ordinary clothes. The moment we were out, they could go. And if I or whoever was feeling really generous, I would say, you know, I don't need you for off-camera lines. Let Cosmo read it and you can go on. You know? But what this always meant was that the last person to be covered was Dwarf. Because he was standing up there on the horseshoe, pretending to do all this stuff. And occasionally there would be somebody else with him, but as all the rest of us got to learn this procedure, we made darn sure that for the last scene of the night, we were never up on the horseshoe on the bridge. Otherwise, you'd be in costume and makeup with Dawn. So a point would arise at which the only person left on the set in costume would be Michael. And, and we would all have changed. You know, we'd be in jeans and, you know, maybe even grabbed a beer or something. And it would come to Michael's coverage. And we would be there, we would always be there. And the very first thing we would do is we would publicly take bets on how many takes Michael would need to do in order to get his dialogue right. Because he all these teeth, you see, and the teeth made him stumble over the lines. In addition, we would shamelessly try to make him laugh. And so there'd be this little pool going on of how many takes would it go on to finally to get through. Captain, finding pot faces. I mean, it would take hours sometimes. Oh, happy days. Happy days. What I used to love about Michael's corpsing, we call it corpsing in England, it's called breaking up here, is that he would say, he'd be completely composed, totally composed, and we'd think, he's going to do it. He'd be completely composed. And the director would say, and action, Michael, and he'd go. You're a gold. So I can take all this crap about ashtrays on my head.
I was going to ask, first of all, had you had a lot of exposure to comic books before you became Professor Xavier? And if you had a superpower, what would it be?
I was brought up on comic books, but not the kind of comic books I suspect that you're thinking of. I was brought up for, there's got to be a few Brits here of my generation who might remember the Beano, Film Fun, Radio Fun. We're going back before television now. Radio Fun. The Eagle. Dan Dare. The Mekon. I always thought I could play the Mekon, you know? No? Not green enough. And then I moved on. Those were picture comic books. But no, they were comic papers, weren't they? They weren't comic books like today. And then I had the reading ones that didn't have pictures, like Hotspur. Oh, there was another one, Dandy. Anybody remember Dandy? But Hotspur and Adventure were weekly reading books, and I kind of progressed to those when I didn't need pictures anymore. Other than that, I had not looked at a comic book in my life until Lauren Schuler-Donner, in her office at Warner Brothers one day, she'd asked me to come in and see her. I was doing ADR on one of her husband's movies, and she came in and she said, do you recognize this? And she held up this comic book across her desk, and I said, what am I doing on the front of a comic book? That's not you. That's Professor Xavier. That's where it all began. Other people will tell you that they cast me, but actually it was Lauren who had the idea.
And your superpower? Would you, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
Supercar?
No, if you had a superpower, if you were a superhero.
A superpower?
Yeah, what would your power be?
Well, I have a sort of serious answer to this and a less serious one. I would like to have some of Magneto's power. I would love to be able to just remove that car from in front of me that is doing 45 miles an hour. I guess I would like, now after these last few weeks, I'd like to see everybody working out. In some way. I mean, because the thing about working out is, you know, you only just need to walk for 20 minutes, gently. You don't have to, you know, power down the street. And it would just be very good for all of us. Yes, sir.
What was your favorite Next Generation episode and your favorite Next Gen movie?
Well, we're back in this favorite thing now. I like different episodes for different reasons. I liked some because they were acting challenges, specific acting challenges, like Chain of Command, 1 and 2. In the Light, thank you very much. Thank you. In the Light, because it was a challenge, and it was also a brilliant script too. And also my son was in it, which was a treat for me. I loved all the Dixon Hill episodes because I got to wear civvies and, you know, pretend to be a San Francisco cop, detective.
There's a new project.
Dick. What?
That's a new project. Dixon Hill the movie.
Dixon. From your mouth to God's ear. And I liked all of the episodes in which we got out of our uniforms, obviously. I liked the Robin Hood episode very much. I liked Captain's Holiday. I liked that we did that sort of Edwardian thing in San Francisco. Whoopi was in. We were underground a lot, weren't we? Yeah. Yes. Times Arrow. I liked that one where we kept going round and round in a loop. What was that called? Cause and Effect. That was good, wasn't it? And I loved that one where we were trying to prove that Brent was, not Brent, Data. That Data was sentient. Remember that one? When Starfleet wanted to take him away and make thousands and thousands of copies of him, and I argued that he was unique. Measure of a Man, thank you very much. My assistant, Jackie, is sitting in the wings over here, keeping an eye on me. And we were talking about, because she's doing a convention appearance next week. And we were talking about what she would do, and I was giving her some ideas of things to do, and it just reminded me of, I've forgotten what it was I was going to say. Jackie, I gave you a really good idea about something. What was it? And I said, you should talk about something to do with a particular episode. Oh yes, I remember. You don't mind if I tell this to you? It won't steal your thunder because it's in Germany where you're going to. Is anybody going to be in, where are we going? Does anybody going to Dusseldorf next weekend? I can tell this story. I stayed, earlier this year, January actually, I stayed at a very fancy spa in Southern California. I mean, really high class, expensive. And I needed cleaning up stuff. It was great, it was lovely. But I was entirely private. I spent my days having all kinds of different treatments, and it was wonderful. being wrapped in icy frozen sheets and things. Great. And having room service, because I didn't want to go into the room. I was on my own, and I wanted to watch stupid television and not have to sit in a restaurant and all that. And so I've settled down my first evening in my beautiful suite. I got my robe on, you know, I never got dressed, and I'm flicking through the channels, bing, bing, bing. It's Jean Picard. I'm about to, I don't remember that. I watch and I think, I have no recollection of shooting this episode. And who is that guest actor? I've never seen him before. It's weird. So I'm sitting there, and so I'm watching, I'm fascinated by this thing I've never seen before. And bing bong, the doorbell goes, and it's my supper. So I go in, I let the guy in, and he says, "Shall I lay it out here?" I said, "Yeah, put it here in front of the television set." And he goes, "Oh yeah, fine." I knew that he went back to the kitchen and said, "I have just witnessed the saddest thing I've ever seen." In there watching reruns. No life, it's really sad. Yes, my dear.
I was just wondering, how did you accept your Captain Picard role, since you've been in theater before and doing so much Shakespeare? Because my teacher, whose name is Carolyn Sweeney, she says she knew you from New York, and before accepting the role, you talked to her, and she said that you weren't sure if you should take it since it's sci-fi and so different than what you've done before.
What does that do?
Carol Sweeney from New York.
I know some Max Sweeties,
Okay, yeah. She said she...
but I didn't know them then.
Okay.
Well, I was never in New York at that time, but it's true. It's all kind of part of the legend now, isn't it? All how I got this. But when I was cast, I didn't know that I had to sign a 6-year contract. And when my agent sat me down and explained it to me, this was on a Monday afternoon. I was cast Monday morning, and they said, "You've got until Friday to do this deal." I said, I can't do 6 years. I've got things to do. I've got a career and a life, and I can't do. And everybody said to me, "Don't worry, because it's never going to run. We'll be lucky to make it past the first season." And I did it. I signed the contract on the basis of all that advice that everybody gave me, which is this series is a failure. It's true.
Thank you.
No, I was doing a play in London. I was transferring Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf to the West End. I had no intention of doing an American science fiction syndicated TV show. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Hello, thank you.
My name is Michael O'Sullivan, and I wanted to thank you for 2 reasons. First of all, for reaffirming to me that bald men are sexy, handsome, and intelligent. And secondly, I've been married for 20 years, and my wife has a great deal of admiration for you. And for some time now, I've been trying to convince her that getting hot and sweaty 5 or 6 times a week is actually very good for my heart, and I think you may have convinced her. I'll take help wherever I can find it.
Is she here with you this afternoon?
Oh, yes. For safety, I may ask to come up on the stage with you. Well, she is French-Canadian, and you play a French actor, so you know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Anyhow, I head up the Humane Society of Canada, and I know that you love horses from your on-screen appearances, and I just wondered if you had any other animals.
If I had...
If you have any pets, dogs, cats, horses?
Yeah, I have a cat who doesn't live with me. She lives with Jackie. Bella, she's quite famous. She was a refugee from the Northridge earthquake back in '94. She was found on some concrete, some cement. I love horses. In fact, here's the irony. I was cantering on not me, I was cantering on a horse on a beach in Santa Barbara about 14 hours before I went into hospital and had my treatment done. I mean, that's how good I thought I was. I thought I was that fit. Little did I know. But I love horses, and one day I would like to have my own horse, and I'm trying to find somewhere where I can live where that would be possible. And I love dogs, but I've never in my life been with anybody who liked them, so I never had one. There's a price to be paid, you know, for love. No dogs. And I'm a diver. I do scuba, so I love everything underwater. Yeah. It's great. Yes, sir?
Look, I just read, I think it was volume 5 of Transmetropolitan, the comic book. You wrote an introduction for it. It's colorful, I enjoyed it. I was wondering, if they offered you a role in the movie now, Spider Jerusalem, would you take it? Would you turn it down? And do you like any other current comic book series?
Yes. Transmetropolitan. Brilliant, isn't it? Brilliant, yeah. It's, you know, I had a production company, still do. It's just kind of dormant at the moment. And Transmetropolitan was one of the dozen or 15 great projects that we had, not one of which got made. And I just had to give it up because it was too disappointing. I finally thought to myself, actors have to learn to live with disappointment. Why should I want to be a producer to double the amount of disappointment? Except that as a producer, you spend 5 years, 10 years, 15 years developing something, and then it never gets made. You know, life is too short. But I am a big fan of Transmetropolitan, and we had all kinds of ideas for that, including animation. And if something came of it, I would... Mr. Warren is still a friend of mine. In fact, he was one of the nice people I got an email from when he heard about my procedure. And I also, because I was supposed to be in it at one time, it's a strange business, this, you know. You go home one day and you say, they want me for this part. I've had the greatest meeting. And then you never hear anything more again. I will remember the name of this comic book in a moment, which was made into a film, and it was called From Hell. And I'd never seen anything like that comic book when it was sent to me to look at. I thought it was staggeringly brilliant. The graphics, the artwork, and the story. But as I remember, the movie got made, and I don't recall being in it. But no, I'm not. What I have done, because I was in Japan for 6 weeks earlier this year, and I was for the first time exposed to Japanese comic books. Never seen them before. Wow, it's astonishing, isn't it? Amazing stuff. I was looking at some in a bookshop in Cincinnati yesterday. Go away. But no, I wouldn't say that I was a comic book fan, despite all this. Thank you. But Spider Jerusalem, great, brilliant character. Warren Ellis is really a clever guy. Yes, young man.
Hi, my name is Jake. I'm 9 years old, and I've got 2 gifts for you. And I was wondering if I could come up on stage and my dad could take a quick picture.
That is teabag. Very good. And a picture. Am I really? That's true. me too. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I was wondering a couple of things. When you were doing the Jimmy Neutron movie,
Right.
with the voiceovers and things, did you enjoy that type of work? Would you look for any more of that type of work?
That actually, animated, anime has been my primary occupation for the past 9 months. I've done 4 movies, none of which, of course, come out. It's a long process. You can all look forward to Bambi 2. The Great Prince of the Forest, that's me, Bambi's father. Do you know the work of Miyazaki, the Japanese Spirited Away? It's in my top 10 all-time list of any movie. I mean, brilliant. And Princess Mononoke too. Well, he has a lot of movies. Disney have bought all of his early movies and they're going to release them here with English voices. And I'm really lucky I got to play the leading role, or the leading male role, in the first one that they're going to release, which is called Nausicaa, Spirit of the Winds, Valley of the Winds. It's back in the 70s, I think, but it's got all of his strangeness and genius. Then there's another movie, the title of which I can never remember, but it's really, really good. It's a German animated movie, and it's absolutely brilliant, and maybe I'll remember the name of it before we're done. And I have just finished, just a couple of weeks ago, a week's work on an extraordinary Japanese animated movie called Steam Boy, which is set in Manchester and London, England. And I play an inventor. It's, again, the sort of leading role. In fact, my son is played by the wonderful actor Fred Molina. Do you know Fred? Fred and I worked together in the Royal Shakespeare Company back in the 70s, and now here we are again, working together in this. It's great. And, oh, here's the other little, Trivial Pursuit moment. The 3 leading characters are played by Fred Molina, Anna Paquin, and me. And Steam Boy, look out for it. It is unlike any animated movie you've ever seen before. So this is what I've been doing a lot of, and I love it. I love it. It's technically so interesting. I mean, because of the having to lip sync, and to be presented with a character. It's all the wrong way around from how we usually work. Being shown, this is the character. Here he is, the way he moves, the way he behaves, his manner, and so on. Now you've got to find a voice that will fit to him. I find it intriguing. By the way, the Bambi 2 is really, really nice. It's delightful. It picks up where Bambi ended, after the death of his mother, and the great prince has to bring up a single parent, has to bring up the kid on his own.
Michael Dorn could probably give you a few more pointers if you needed any, but you could probably get a dig in on him when you see him soon. You could make a point of mentioning the voiceovers that he does for Dodgers. Happens to be a robot that bears a bit of a resemblance to a Klingon, and he seems to get blown up quite often, so you might want to, mention how come you can't keep together on the stage.
Thank you. I will make a point to remember.
That would be interesting. Does he seem to say that he liked doing the voiceovers as much as you do? So.
I think all actors do. I think with all of us, we just eat this stuff up if we get a chance to do it. And I especially did enjoy Jimmy Neutron. There's an action figure of that character. You know I have 3 characters who have action figures out there. Professor Xavier, John Luke, and King Goobot. No, there really is an action figure of King Goobot. I've got one.
How brutal was your first experience as a director for a Next Generation episode? I'm basing this from talking to Michael Dorn and LeVar Burton.
How good was it, or what was your friend?
Brutal.
Brutal? wasn't really brutal at all. Not the first one that I did. People were kind of still being nice to me in the first one. Directing those 6 episodes really saved me in those last years of Next Generation, because it was hard to stay focused, you know, during that time. And having those episodes to direct made such a difference to me. I loved every moment of directing. I was terrified. You see, fear is good, though, you know. You know, I think sometimes we'd stop being scared on Next Generation, and fear was. It was good to drive through those gates of Paramount and be nervous again. And I was. I mean, I'll never forget that first morning of walking on there and everybody looking at you, because, you know, you're expected to know what's going to happen next if you're the director. One of them I remember struggling with, but the others were, and I was very lucky that I got a marvelous script for my first one, and it was a data script too, so I got to work very closely with Brent. What was it called? In Theory, thank you. And I loved, of course, directing the Western. Everybody hated me for that, all the real directors and all us directors, because we all knew there was a Western coming up. But you know, they don't sign these episodes. It just happens to be, you know, they got a line with directors on, and then they got a line with projected episodes, and you know, whichever is the next one ready, the next director gets it. And I just happened to get Fistful of Datas, which was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Never forget that. My one day at Warner Brothers shooting on their back lot on their Western town was one of the great days of my life. But that's it. I haven't done any directing since Star Trek ended, so it's been 10 years now. I keep up my membership of the DGA, and I have a project that I've wanted to do for a long time, but Jonathan and I were having lunch the other day, and we both agreed that it might just be that directing movies might just be the best job in the world, when you've got it, you know, when you're actually doing it. Thank you. Yes?
I was wondering, have you ever had any regrets about being famous?
No, not regrets. It's inconvenient sometimes. That's all. Everything else is great. It's convenient much more than it's inconvenient. But occasionally it's inconvenient. And you know, but it's a small price to pay. It's just privacy, that's all. It's not being able to find privacy. I used to love going and sitting in bars. I mean, I'm not a drunk or anything like that. One of the things I loved about coming to America, I always preferred American bars to English pubs. And I would just love to go in and have a beer, sit at a bar, watch baseball on TV or whatever, and just be, you know, completely anonymous. And of course that ain't possible anymore. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for coming here today. Like, we really appreciate you coming here and taking the time to talk to us right now, so I want to say thank you. I would like to ask you, a while back, you were on Frasier, playing a fairly interesting character. I was wondering if you could, like, you know, share with us, like, what was your experience like with, you know, playing that type of character and being on the show that isn't normally science fiction or, you know, in general, what you're used to doing?
Are you asking about what it was like to play a gay man? Just come on out and say it.
Not directly, but yes.
Not directly,
yes.
Okay. It was, I seem to keep saying this, I've just been so lucky in my life. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And I was scared. We only filmed, that was 3 days work, you know, that's all it took. Usually it's 4 days to shoot Frasier. They did this in 3 because they had a day off, holiday. I was so frightened. Arriving, I drove, and it's filmed at Paramount, you know, it's my home, it's my studio. I drove onto the lot that day as though I was going to my first job in my first studio ever. I was so nervous. And we did the read-through sitting around the table, and I just thought, I'm not going to be able to get these lines out. And these were my heroes. I loved that show. And before that, I'd loved Cheers, and Kelsey and David Hyde Pierce, and this, oh man, but they were so supportive. I mean, they were, without exception, Kelsey all the way through all of them. I mean, there was not a day that I worked when one of them wouldn't come up and say, "It's great that you're doing, it's so good you're doing this, it's terrific," you know. And it was a wonderful experience. I'm very proud of having done one. And they tell me that it's become one of the classics of the whole series, which is great. So I'm proud to be part of that and to have played that character. And I'd love to do some more half hour. I really, really would, if I could find the right material. They only work 3 days a week. I once met Ted Danson, and when they were shooting Cheers, because they shot on the Paramount lot, and he said to me, "God, you look terrible." And I said, "Boy, we're working these 14-hour days, day after day, this dialogue, I've got to learn this dialogue." And he said, "Sitcom, half hour." Thank you.
Yes, hello. I was wondering, I was curious, what exactly would be your dream car?
Dream car?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've actually got my eye on one right. But I don't know if it's my dream car because I haven't driven it yet. If it were a dream car, it would probably be, you know, a collectible. XK140, probably. What a great car. Jaguar XK140.
Good choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I live near the Design Museum in London, and they've had for 6 weeks, they had a red E-Type in a glass cage as an example of, you know, classic design that will always be beautiful and brilliant. And I used to walk past it 2 or 3 times a week, and boy, it made my heart go pitter-pat.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I have a Jaguar XJS V12, 12-cylinder. I have it now, I may not have it much longer, and I've had it for 14 years, and I love that car, but I think maybe the time has come. Anybody who is interested in buying a virtually one-owner XJS V12 that belonged to the captain, make me an offer. British Racing Green, wire wheels, maintained by a Jaguar mechanic in Los Angeles all its life.
What's the mileage?
73. Thought of having a little brass plaque made and put on the, you know, on the veneer, I think it's Elm, you know, that said, Captain Picard, 19, whatever. It's a wonderful car. Right, moving on. Yes, my dear.
Hi, I was just wondering what types of books you like to read and what you're currently reading.
Oh, novels, actually. I love reading novels, but I have to read a lot of other books for research from time to time. But I'm never happy if I'm away from novels, and I try to mix up classic novels, 19th century novels, with trying to keep up with so many books are published these days. But on the plane this morning, as we were flying in Toronto, I finished a book which I really enjoyed and I wholeheartedly recommend. You probably already know because it's part of the series. The book is called The Air Affair. You see, this was new to me. My partner gave it to me a couple of weeks when I was coming on this trip, and it's brilliant. Isn't it brilliant?
Yes, there's 4 of them now.
I know there are 4. I didn't realize. I only learned that when I turned the last page and found that there were 3 other books there as well. Thursday Next. What a woman. That's the name of the principal character, Thursday Next.
Just before it's coming to Toronto.
What is?
The author's coming to Toronto.
Really? Give him my love. So I really enjoyed that. And because I was in Japan, I read some Japanese novelists and the grandest experience. And I'm about now to remember the name of the man whose work I impressed most. Who's good on Japanese 20th century literature? Dance, Dance, Dance. Miyazaki, is that his name? I'm so embarrassed. I'd read 3 of this man's novels back to back, and now can't remember the author's name. But they're wonderful contemporary writings. Oh, and I also read 2 of the novels of Mishima, who I'd never read before as well, and they were great. That's it. Yes, sir.
I heard you like the British show Red Dwarf. And
Harayuki Miyakami. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry about that.
I've heard you like the show Red Dwarf.
Red Dwarf?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Do you have just back to the favorites thing, do you have a favorite episode or character?
No, because I haven't seen enough of them, I'm afraid. I have to watch them on video. So I watch whatever I've got, but I think that they are brilliant, and I wish I would have loved to have done a guest spot on that show. It would have been amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you've played a lot of protagonists, Captain Picard, Professor X. I was wondering, do you prefer playing the protagonist or the antagonist in a movie?
Oh, they both have their merits, and I get such a lot of... so long as the character has presence and is dominant, exactly what his function isn't really that important to me. I played a lot of, worthy good guys, and a lot of real stinkers as well in my